Good morning. We've had a great conference so far, and we're so excited that you're here today, and we're very excited about our speaker. Again, my name is Amy Ingram. I'm the director of the Experiential Education and Engagement Center here at AUM, and Derreck Kayongo and his family fled a civil war in Uganda and settled in the U.S. when he was just 10 years old. Now a successful entrepreneur, Kayongo is a renowned expert in environmental sustainability and global health as the founder of the Global Soap Project, which takes donated, melted, purified, and reprocessed hotel soap and redistributes it to vulnerable populations around the world. He is also the former CEO of the National Center for Civil and Human Rights, which capitalizes on the immersive management and leadership experience he has developed over the last 20 years working for Nobel Peace Prize winning organizations like Amnesty International and the American Friends Service Committee. Currently, there are 5,500 hotels that are members of the Global Soap Project Recycling Program in the United States alone, and the list of participating countries has recently expanded to 90. Global Soap recently partnered with Clean the World to make an even more expansive and effective organization.
Our next hero survived unspeakable horrors, a civil war in Uganda and a refugee camp in Kenya. He then eventually arrived in America. Derreck Kayongo landed in the city of brotherly love. He spent his first night in a hotel and was amazed by what he saw by the bathroom sink. Soap. 3 kinds of it. Face soap, hand soap, and body soap. And because of where he came from, he had no idea there were so many. So Derreck did what everybody does. He put a couple of bars in his bag and used one. The next day, it had all been replaced. He quickly ran to the front desk, gave the bars back, and asked for his old soap. He thought they were charging him for it, and he couldn't afford it, of course. Then he realized what they were really doing. They were throwing it all away. And in that moment, Derreck had a life-saving idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Derreck Kayongo. It worked perfectly just a moment ago.
Good afternoon. How are you guys doing? Yeah? Are you enjoying yourselves? I'm so glad to come and speak to you guys because you're practitioners. Usually I talk to lawyers and doctors and accountants, and it's very jejune and boring. So we're going to have fun today, yeah? Because we are the doers, man. We are the ones that correct the whole thing. Yeah? So we're going to do this. I'm going to tell you my personal story, and then we're going to finish that personal story, and then do some Q&A and sort of banter together and disagree and agree and fight a little bit, yeah, in practice. And then, if you're lucky, I will teach you an African song at the end of the presentation. Yeah? That way you can take something back home. Okay? In 1979, my parents and I awoke to an incredible experience. We had gunshots out of the apartment that we lived in, and my father looked out of the apartment and he saw a soldier wielding an AK-47. And in Swahili, which is an amalgam of Bantu languages and Arabic, he said the following: "Get out of your apartments right now, get out." And he was so rude and so tough and brazen that my father said, "Let's get out of the apartment, because if he comes into the apartment, he might actually kill us." So we get out of the apartment and we are hauled up to this roundabout station where we meet an incredible scene. And And it turned out that they had run up the whole village. And as I walk into that scene, I see my playmates, Masco, Hassan, and Kukuli, with their parents and tears rolling down their faces. And I knew this was going to be a long, long day. So as we walk into that scene, there was a rostrum as big as this. And that same reprobate comes up with a bullhorn and he says to everybody simmer down, be quiet. And as we simmer down, he utters the most painful words I've ever had in my entire life. He says, last night, 2 of my soldiers were killed, and I'm here to figure out who killed them. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a firing squad until you tell me who killed those 2 soldiers. A firing squad. We were aghast at this particular accusation because in any civilized society, what happens when a crime like that is committed? You investigate the crime, you police the crime. He did not. The audacity for him was to come and just surround the whole village, and that's the big question. So to no avail, he picked up 4 people at random. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on. And as they bring those 4 up, he asked them a question again. Who killed those 2 soldiers? To no avail, again, he pulled out a magnum pistol and shot all 4 of them at once. The cacophony that ensued after that, because now all of a sudden, we know we're in the middle of a firing squad, mothers grabbing their kids, people screaming, and he yelled out again, everybody be quiet. Be quiet. We're going to do this all day until you tell me who killed those 2 soldiers. And as we simmer down again, he picks up another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come up. And as he points at those 4, neighbors have to point at each other saying, he picked you. Can you imagine right now, your neighbor pointing you out and saying, you are the one that they pointed out, knowing very well that you're going to be what? Executed. It's amazing what human beings can do when they're caught between a rock and a hard place. We are all civil now, but when push comes to shove, it's amazing what you would do to save yourself and let the other person go. So those 4 brought up against their will, lined up. The question was asked again, to no avail. Those 4 gunshots rang out again. That was 8. Before I could bring up another 4, a young man at the very back rose up his hand ever so gently and he yelled out, I did it. And we said, what? And we looked back to see who this young man was. And as it turns out, he was a visitor of the village and there's no way he could have committed that crime. So they bring him to the front. And there's banter between the 2 of them, and I shut my eyes because I didn't want to see that again. And as they finished bantering, that gunshot rang out, and I could feel his body fall to the ground as he shook into his death at that very moment. At which point, this horrible human being had the audacity to tell us, thank you so much for your cooperation. I hope this never happens again. And if it does, I'll be back here and we'll do this again. I was 10 years old, watching adults do this. And at 10, when you see a firing squad so brazenly put before you like that, you start to think, do adults really care about life? And do they understand the beauty of that godly thing called life? Or are they just doing their own thing? Because who does that? Who does that? And so we go back home and we let go. And my mother sat down with my dad and my mother told my father, we are leaving this country because I cannot live in this country like this. And so we begin our journey out of our country to become refugees in Kenya. So I want you to park that grotesque picture that I've just given you. And I'm going to walk you up back into who was Derreck before that horrible day. So wake up out of the stupor, let's find out who Derreck was. So I'm originally Ugandan. Who knows where Uganda is? Really? I just asked that question in Santa Barbara recently, and a young lady said, I know where Uganda is. I said, darling, where is Uganda? And she said, it is south of San Diego, closer to Tier 1. And I thought it was a joke, but she was really serious. Because Americans, you guys suck at geography, am I right? So, Uganda is a small little country. Let's see if I can bring it up here. There it is. It's in the heart of Africa. It's the size of Oregon, albeit with more people than Oregon. We have about 50 million people in that little country. But we are very proud of our country because we have a lot of things that we do that are fun. Number one is we are the source of the Nile. Okay? Now that is fantastic. If you don't know what that means, let me tell you what it means. There is no Egypt without the Nile. Okay? So all the Egyptian civilization begins in the journey of that river coming out of Lake Victoria, going up all the way to Egypt. In fact, we have an agreement with the Egyptian government never to divert the river away from it, because if we do, guess what? They're done. So we're very prideful about that. Now, by the way, the Ethiopians also think they're the source of the Nile because we have the Blue Nile and the White Nile. But they're not here to give the speech, yeah? So we are the source of the Nile. We also pride ourselves in another thing. We're great runners, am I right? We can run. I mean, good God. Every time I see Americans running in the Boston Marathon, the New York Marathon, and Chicago, I'm like, oh. You're going to lose. The Kenyans are here, the Ugandans are here. You guys can go to the moon, go. Leave the running to us. Thank you very much. We also pride ourselves in having the best pineapple in the world. However, the first time I saw an American pineapple, such as it is, it was so small. I was like, oh, America, you can make a pineapple great again. Oh, you get that joke? I'm not PC at all. But we get this country back from the British in the 60s, get independence. And my parents are very eager to see us build a new country. And they were both teachers in the beginning, so they're ready to teach. You know, they're getting ready to teach. And then they realized that teaching doesn't pay very well. I don't know, do teachers get paid well in the US? No. Something that I don't understand that. Anyway, so they're not going to wait for us to become what? Agreeable about that thing. They're going to change and morph into business people. So I saw my parents change from being teachers and learning new skills by themselves. My mother became a wedding gown seamstress. And I saw her every time she came back from teaching, spend the whole evening learning how to cut. Because that's what tailoring is all about. So I joke all the time that she didn't have mannequins for flower gown dresses in the beginning. So guess who the mannequin was? Moi. This is why I'm just better than any American man. I have a bad joke about this. My son hates this joke. I say to him, his name is Kevin. I say, Kevin, do you know I was a cross-dresser since I was 5? And he says, Dad, don't say that. I'm in college now. I said, why? She said, you're embarrassing me. I said, touche, you embarrass me all the time. My father, on the other hand, learned how to make soap. We're going to talk about soap here in a minute. And they did very well. My mom built the second largest David's bridal in the country and became a very wealthy woman. My dad built a big plant, soap making plant, and became just a wonderful product guy, and that's how I learned how to make soap. And then guess who came into power then? AEE. And this whole promise of this wonderful country that was germinating immediately died. And so that particular situation we just packed over here happened, and they lost everything. So going from private schools and doing all this wonderful stuff, being chauffeured to school and everything, I then ended up becoming a refugee. That is crazy. But before we do that new part of the speech, do you guys want to see my parents? Yes. Let me show you my parents. That's Uganda, River Nile. That's me. That's my mom and dad. I bring them up because we need to understand the value of parents and how wonderful it is to have a good parent. And I'm telling you, not all of us have that opportunity. And some of us who have parents take them for granted. But I'll tell you something very magical about African parents. We don't have books like you guys do, you know, that are self-help books, yeah? 7 habits of what? Highly effective people. 5 ways of doing that. 2 ways of this. And you know, passion-driven life. And we don't have those books. But what we have is a parent who sits down with you and really nurtures you and teaches you these value systems and help you sort of walk into these scenarios of challenge with grace. And so for what I'm going to show you today and how I build the Global Soul Project, it comes and emanates from the value system these 2 people had. Seeing them innovate all the time was amazing, because my dad, after we lost everything, becomes a guerrilla or a rebel fighter and fights Idi Amin. And guess what skill he taught himself after that? He became a very good spy. My father was a spy for 15 years. And guess who they were looking for in that scenario? Him. Now, we don't know whether he killed the 2 soldiers, but there was something that there was a spy on that village. But he ended up becoming very, very important in our country. And he's actually a legacy-driven man. My mom then goes on to become a feminist kind of lady back at home and starts to elevate the values of women in our leadership. So my dad puts me in Kenya, and goes back to fight Idi Amin, and puts me in the hands of an American woman from Pittsburgh to raise me. Now, how many of you have ever met Americans before? Good. American women from Pittsburgh. They're crazy. Absolutely crazy. She was so loud and obnoxious and very vivacious. So the first day I meet Marge Campbell in her living room, she busts in and says, "What's up, Derreck?" And they go, "Oh, my God." Because I was British raised, yeah? And the Brits are very much what? "Hello, darling, how are you?" So she says, "Would you care for a cup of tea?" I said, "That would be lovely." So she runs back into the kitchen, gets a cup of tea, and comes back, gives me the cup of tea. I take a sip of it, and it was cold. Faux pas. So I set it back down, and she does what American women from Pittsburgh would do, which is, "What is wrong?" I said, "Darling, I think you forgot to cook the tea." She says, "No, young man, that's American what? Iced tea." I said, "Oh, God." You still forgot to cook it. And that began our friendship. Then she says to me, "Derreck, you have to go to university. It's time for you to go to school." So I come to the US and land in the city of brotherly love. Beautiful city, Philadelphia. My God, I land into the city and I walk into my hotel. This is my first time to be in a big hotel, you know, like a real hotel. So I walk into my room and it's copacetic. Lovely pillowcases, you know, everything. So I'm like, whoa, this is fantastic. I'm in the US, man, I made it. So I walk into the bathroom, and in the bathroom, as I walk in, I see 3 bars of soap. Facial soap, body soap, and hand washing soap. I'm like, right? What's the difference?
There is none.
None. Now you see, that's why I love to talk to you guys, because when I talk to lawyers, they say, "Color, size, none." This is the joke about this. So I figured, you know, my dad made soap. He never said, "Derreck, that is your butt soap. Do not use it to your face." Why do you guys have facial soap, body soap, and hand washing soap, and shampoo? And what is that? So anyway, I said, you know what? It's Americans being bougie. So I'm going to take my 2 bars, put them in the bag for another day. And I'll be fine. So I put the 2 bars in my bag. I come back that evening, and what do you think they've done? They replaced it. But I'm a former refugee, what am I going to do? Steal the heck out of it. Boom. So for 3 days I was stealing soap. Then I realized, these guys are going to charge me for the soap. I don't have the quid to do it, so I took all the stolen stuff down to the concierge, as Laura Dan mentioned, and the concierge was African American. I had never met African Americans in my entire life. The only experience I had with African Americans was through the movie Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. So I was dying to meet African Americans because, you know, I mean, my goodness, they're so cool. You know, even the men, especially the African American men, they're so cool. I mean, who walks like this? I mean, just think about it. African American men walking. Who walks like that? So I was dying to meet these guys, and I wanted to say that famous word, yo, what's up, brother? I wanted to say that so bad. So he's elegant, he's concierge, and he's out there. So I walk up to him and I said, what's up, brother? He said, what's up, young man? I said, well, I have a secret for you. He said, what? He said, I've been stealing your soap. He's like, what? Like from housekeeping? I said, no, you keep bringing me soap every night. I can't afford it. Take it back to them. Tell them to charge me for it. He burst out laughing. He said, are you African? Are you Nigerian? Because you guys think we're all Nigerians. I'm from Africa. Nigeria, no. We have 55 countries in Africa. Okay, we are not all Nigerians. So we are bantering. He's teasing me and I'm teasing him back. And he says, no, Derek, that soap is already charged into your room. So you're fine. It's already built in. I said, okay. So as I walk away from him, a thought comes to mind. What happens to the passion use bar that you use once? What do you do with that? He says, oh, I mean, come on, dude. We throw that out. In fact, if you break the seal, even if you didn't use it, we have to do what? Throw it out. I said, this hotel or every hotel in the US? He says, every hotel in the US, once you open the seal, boom, out. My goodness, I went back to my room and I sat down and I thought to myself, how much soap are they throwing away? How big is this country? And I'm going to bring up the number to you this afternoon. And I want you to imagine the number of how much soap do you think American hotels throw away annually? And let's see whether it comports with the number that you have in your mind. So, there's the number. 800 million bars of soap are thrown away every year. That is 2.6 million bars of soap every single day into your environment, into your landfills. Dangerous because it stops the biodegradable processes of your landfills. That is a lot of volume. And it goes into your water and you start to complain about all these elements that you face when you drink your water. So rather than complain when I look at that number, I remember that when my dad was letting me come to the States, he said, Derek, do you know what America is? I said, what is America, Dad? He says, Derek, it's an incredible experiment of all these people who have come from all over the world to try and figure out how to live together and really do some impressive things. So how old is your country? How old do you think your country is? Anybody? 200 plus, close to 300 years now. But can you imagine what you've done in 300 years? Look at it. It is absolutely, if you step back, because you guys are internally thinking this is horrible, but if you step back and look at the country, it is amazing what you have done. And do you know why you've done that? Because you are one of the most diverse communities in the world. New York City speaks 91 languages. 91 languages in New York City. And that means that there's 91 what? Cultures that have come from all over the world to build that particular city. So it is amazing that when you see that number, you can either come here and complain, or you can look at that number and say, America is a place for what? Construction. You come from Uganda like I did, and you come here, you can complain all you want, but if you want to, go back to Uganda. But if you want to really make something of this country, Stay here and solve that problem. Solve the problem. And so rather than complain, I just figured I'm going to solve the problem. So let's solve the problem. Okay? So that's my hotel room. That's what the soap looks like. It's a royal mess. Question: what do you think I did to kill the germs on that soap without altering the chemistry of the soap? That was the question. So you want to take a tab on that? What do you think I did? Microwave. Really, dude? 800 million bars of soap? That's a big microwave. Good idea, but no. Because it still would change the chemistry of the soap. What else do you think I did? Washed it. Why is that wrong, but right?
Lose the layer. That's dirty.
Okay? Good try. But the problem is that there are other sciences that come into that particular solution that would prohibit you from doing that. And one of the sciences is what? Accounting. So when you wash the soap, what in accounting are you using up a lot of? Water. Utility of water, that bill is going to be what? Way high, making the soap cost prohibitive.
Did you freeze it?
Freeze it. Well, that's a good idea, but what happens to germs when you freeze them and then you warm it up back again? They go to sleep. There are germs in Siberia that have been asleep for a billion years. And now with global warming, they're waking up, they're like, oh, okay, we're back. Good idea, but no. One more try.
UV light.
UV light. No. Thank you. So this is where you guys have to start to think about how to solve problems. This is what they call the power of observation. That as you look at a problem, you're constantly thinking of ways to solve it by observing other things. So one day, as I'm thinking about the problem, I'm watching telly, and a commercial comes on telly of a guy who had invented this very interesting contraption. You put the meat into the plastic bag, okay, and do what? Suck the air out and create what? A vacuum. And guess what happens to the germs? They love to breathe like you and dance the Macarena and eat you. But if there's no air, they die. And they die a natural death that does not interrupt the chemistry processes of what? The soap. Man, I jumped out of my bed, ran downstairs, looked at that soap and said, oh my goodness. Bought the contraption, put the soap in there, waited for 2 weeks for good measure, then took the soap to the lab, and they were testing for 12 pathogens. The lab calls me a week later and says, Derreck, can you come in? They go, oh God, I think I failed. So they said to me, what did you do to kill all the germs without altering the chemistry of the soap? I said, are they all dead? They said, yes. I said, if you give me the permission to go commercial with this, I will tell you the secret. Because people had tried to recycle soap and had failed for a long time. So guess what? I got the permission to recycle soap. I know what you guys are thinking. Because you're Americans, you're so bougie. You're like my son. My son was born here. He said, Dad, I could never use that soap. Ew! Yuck! Because he doesn't know that actually that soap has 99% cleanliness. In fact, as clean as brand new soap from Procter & Gamble. That's how clean that soap was. But how do you get rid of the yuck factor? Because all of us in our professions, in your work, you all have a yuck factor. You run into things that are yucky. And we have to solve for those things. So, here's the first process, peeling. Yeah, that first layer you talked about, we peel it. Then we get into the inside layer, and then we crush it, okay, into a powder. Industrial plastic bags, we suck the air out of that bag, ziplock it and that kind of thing. And then, after we do that, we awaken the soap. There it is, that's my little contraption. Thank you, Home Depot. By awakening the soap, I mean it was so dry that for it to be brought back into a bar, you have to add a little bit of what? Moisture. Very good. And that creates a feather kind of texture thing. Then you put it back into the machine, and as you extrude the soap out and force it together, you get this. That's University of Michigan students that came to volunteer. That's one day of work that they did. Unbelievable. So that was all went to the what? The landfills. Now it's brand new soap, and it's really fantastic. So then we cut it into small bars, for 6 ounce kind of thing, and then we're ready to do fashion. Now I'm just kidding. That one box, okay, has 161 bars of soap in it, and if you give it to a family of 4, it lasts for a whole year. Because when you're teaching health and cleanliness, you can't give somebody 1 bar of soap and then walk away. And I'm giving this soap away to very, very important communities. In Malawi, for example, where we're going to look at in a minute, girls drop out of school because boys make fun of them because of poor hygiene. A bar of soap brought those girls back into school. So it's amazing. I started off by just solving an environmental problem, but now we're getting into education, we're getting into health. It's amazing how our work has this vicarious impact. And so here we are. This is a 40-foot container, and it's going to, at this time it was going to Liberia. What disease was going on in Liberia? Ebola. And the way to fight Ebola is to wash your hands. And I find my work so relevant because after Ebola came what? COVID. The first line of defense against COVID is what? Wash your hands. Okay? So we're going to go to Malawi, and there's the, so they're my wonderful, it's a bad joke, but I'll tell it anyway. What do American mamas say when you give them a gift? What do you guys say? You shouldn't have? Okay? Thank you. Have you ever seen an African mama say thank you before? Can I show you? And they ululate, yeah? And if you're lucky, they give you their daughter to marry. I have like 5,000 wives. There they are. I told a joke in Utah, it did not go very well. Utah is like the most African state in the union. So fantastic. They love me there too. They call me every year. Come back again. But I bring up this photograph because you guys are used to looking at African kids in dire straits. Because NGOs in the US use these horrible pictures of African kids with flies in them to raise money, to shock you guys so much that you say, oh my goodness, we have to give them $20 a month to educate their child. As if that's enough. But when you bring dignity to people, as you know very well, this is what people look like when you bring a little bit of heaven in their lives. This is so important because these girls now can laugh and smile and they're colorful. They had all dropped out of school. And they're back because of a bar of soap. The impact and the legacy of that is that some of them now are going to university. That's the impact and the legacy. Girls love soap. Boys do not. That's why in my tradition, we say, when a boy wants to shake your hand, you say, thank you very much, don't touch me, you bloody bastard, don't touch me. Namaste. Because if you wash your hands, then you don't transfer what? Germs. But once you don't wash your hands, then the germs happen. And because that is important to us, Africans, for the most part, we don't like to use forks and knives because we want to do it. Touch the food and eat the food with our hands and enjoy it that way. But in there lies the problem because then, if you didn't wash your hands, you get waterborne diseases and all the other diseases. So here is this lovely girl who I'd love to bring up, a young woman from this state in Alabama, partnered with me and went and built an orphanage. She was 18 years old. picked up herself, went to Kenya, built an orphanage for these young girls. And she lost her life while in Kenya to malaria. Something she had gone to fight showed her a different route. But her legacy for me has always been that every time I see that young girl, that little orphan, and that bar of soap, I remember her work. So every time you guys influence these young kids or these young people that you're working with, know that there's a legacy behind that you live in. That is so important to me. And so, if you're lucky, they give you a child to take home. But this photograph comes up because, before we get to Q&A here, it comes up because if you do some remarkable work, you'll always have people following you. If you have no people following you at all, that means you're not being impactful. And that's what you guys have to be so proud of. That behind you are all these people that you're impacting and giving a good life to live. That's us eating our food. And these kids are asking me a lot about the United States and what you guys do here, and what's going on. Let me close with showing you that's where we are now in those countries. I came to give you a message of import, because people ask me all the time, Derek, how did you get to do all of this? You're new to the country, what got you to do this? And my father and I were talking, and my father says every human being should have their self-motto. What is your motto? What is what do you believe in that is originally yours? Not you quoting Shakespeare or Plato or anybody. What do you have that is brand new that you can actually give to yourself? And for me, I chose self. And self for me is an acronym that means this, that I believe so much in service. That the reason I love service is because Americans are service communities. I saw Kiwanis Club people here. I love that whole notion of volunteering and giving back. Why is that important? Because volunteers and people who serve actually become very educated on the needs of the community. They become street people who can actually give back to the community in ways that are meaningful. Service is so important for education. Why? Because if you're educated about stuff that the community needs, then it's easy for you to do what? To lead. I know so many people who think they're leaders, but they suck. Why? Because they don't serve. They think they can just waltz in and just totally do their own thing. Service education leads to leadership. And why is that important? Because then you can have faith in your service, in your leadership. It's hard to have faith in a leader. You see them all the time here, yeah? That are self-absorbed. They are politicians, they are churches. They don't care about us. They care about their next what? Star. Leaders are really supposed to be servants. Serving is important. Servant leadership is important. So that became my acronym. And I'm going to end here with a quote that I brought for you guys to take home. We're not talking about perfection. Don't seek perfection. None of us are perfect. Now, some of you are now perfect. But it's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do here is seek balance. Especially for you guys who are in the service industry of giving back to the community. We as servers and leaders have to be balanced. Emotionally, physically. Be healthy. Because if you overwork yourself, then you won't be effective. If you don't understand balance, it's very, very dangerous because then you're all over the place. Be balanced. Justice. Seek justice. In everything you do, seek justice. In fact, our kingdom in Uganda, the king always asks one question. If you brought an idea to the king, the first thing the king asked you was, what is the injury of that idea? I know it's a beautiful idea, but what is the injury of that idea? And if the injury outweighed the benefit, he would not touch it. However brilliant it was, because it would then upset the ecosystem of our community. And we live within our ecosystem in balance. Nobody consumes more than they can afford, and nobody is broke and poor like that. So we all are balanced. Justice. Then lastly, don't forget to have passion. As you can tell, I'm very passionate. Sometimes we forget to be passionate about our work because it becomes jejune. Guys, find a way to spend what we call a self-retreat, your own day or your own week, where you go away and rejuvenate yourself and gain back go back and say, why was I involved in this? Why did I begin this whole thing? Have that passion, go back and put a pause on everything and go back and rejuvenate yourself and come back with a big smile. Because my goodness, sometimes we become so groggy and everybody's looking at you going, oh, he's not at the top of his game. Passion. And then, if you do that, humanity, in my view, will have meaning. I want to tell you that my job here today was to bring you that passion and to remind you of how important you are to us and to our communities. When you go back home, remember that you have to be able to innovate, create, and build with passion, with justice, and with meaning of balance in mind. And I can guarantee you, your legacy will be sealed. That's where the real wealth is, in your legacy. Thank you very much. Big questions. Yes, sir.
So.
Oh, madam, sorry. Okay.
So we have a group of people here that we work with. We brought to this conference, and I was excited to come to Montgomery because of, in Alabama in general, because we haven't seen a lot of things. I mean, we've got our issues in Little Rock, but I like the history and wanted to learn from that. We've been to a couple of things, and it feels really heavy.
Yeah.
And I've been struggling with how to, I've gotten some good ideas from this conference, but struggling with how to learn, but also bring hope out of it. And the museum in Atlanta, I think, does a really, really good job of that with the top floor on human rights. And I was just wondering if you could say something to us today about your experience maybe, how do you inject hope into people, other than giving us, all your great stories, and they are hopeful, but just giving you kind of open floor to maybe add something to that we can take away with us when we go home.
That's a very good question. Hope is a very, very tough thing to have, especially when you're going through struggle. I remember when we were going through the war back at home, it was very hard to be hopeful. It's very hard to be hopeful when you're in the middle of it all. But then you realize that you're not the first person to not have hope. That people have gone through that stage, and it's okay to feel a little bit hopeless. But you have to look at history. People, human beings, are fantastic at galvanizing themselves after they've reached a rock and a hard place and turning around and saying, okay, this is really bad, but we're going to have to do something about it. And for me, being the CEO of the Center for Civil and Human Rights, I really understood what it meant to have an African child leave Africa under slavery and disappears. Like, imagine you're going to fetch water in the spring, and you're captured and you disappear. Now, you guys have heard about the African American story this side and the pain and suffering. But can you imagine if you're the mother of that child in Africa and that child disappeared? And then you start to hear stories of other mothers that say, mine disappeared too. I mean, people are thinking, where are these kids going? Where are these people going? People are disappearing. 11 million people disappeared, just like that. And so we have to step back and say, my goodness, what is this? Because then we realize that in order to dehumanize another human being, guess what you have to do? You have to first dehumanize yourself. And for you to do that, To dehumanize yourself takes a lot of things to happen. So what do? In my culture, rather than come and fight you back that way, the idea for us is to come and help you figure out your dehumanization. So that we can then bring you back, because you're still our child. You guys are all our children. You came from Africa, all of you. And so I usually look at problems that way before I get hope. Because my biggest problem was, how can Americans throw away that? How can you guys be that wasteful? But rather than be angry about things, angry people never solve things. Stay away from anger. It can be horrible. Be angry for 2 days, whatever you have to do, but step out of anger and then step into the area of solution. What can I do to change that? The feminist movement did the same thing. My mother told me, women had no voting rights in this country. Zero. Whether you're white, black, whatever, zero. But rather than commiserate, they had to step back and do it. Say, how can we solve this? And that was a negotiation. My hope has actually risen from being in this country. 300 years old, do you know how many horrible conversations you guys have had? Big topics. Gay rights, animal rights, environmental rights, African American rights, women. I mean, those are huge conversations. But do you know why they happen? They happen because somebody said they had a dream. Little sentence, I have a dream. I said, my goodness, that's fantastic. And to have a black president, I mean, who thought that would happen? That's how hope comes about. By you stepping back and looking at history and seeing where people have done remarkable things where there was no hope at all. My friend from Ukraine right now has no hope. He called me and said, Derek, I have no hope. I said, dude, I know, but guess what? The beauty about this is that those kinds of wars never last longer than our lives as hopeful people. That war will end, and that country will stand. That's where hope begins, in seeing stories of others that have been successful. So go back home and know that you're not the first one to have hopeless situations. Step out of anger and hopeless and step into that reception. I'm going to make something happen. Boom, and go make it happen. Yes?
From Uganda too, so...
Nyabo, you're here.
I'm about to build that one. So, coming from another country,
Yeah.
and navigating the US and a whole different world, it's already a scary thing you have to experience. But then you also find yourself trying to stand out, and stand up, and standing for yourself and grow. So my question is, what gave you the confidence to begin the business that you began in the first place, but not to just be a successful business owner, but to keep going and encouraging others and standing up in the community to be the person that you actually want? What kept you being driven from the beginning until where you are now? What gives you hope every morning you wake up and say, I'm up, what do I do now?
Yeah, so I'm going to take you back to that little thing I talked about, my parents. To have a parent or to have somebody who tells you all the time, you can do it, it's possible, and you see them do it, that's where it begins for me. That passion begins there for me. But then when you come to a country like this, and I've been to 44 states in this country, and you see the uniqueness of every state and its contribution, you then realize that you're not with a bunch of people who are just lazy and doing nothing. You know, when you read about Benjamin Franklin and how much he did, when you read about all these African-American scientists that did remarkable things, traffic lights, you know, who came up with traffic lights? People are here doing stuff. So if you want to be lazy and do nothing, America will have you for dinner. But if you really understand the challenge of this country, which is to tell you, you are here, carve away. Do what you have to do what these people are doing. What makes somebody from Europe or from Argentina come here, or from Mexico, and they build a whole business that Derreck cannot build? And if I convince myself and do the war is me, then I'm not understanding the premise of the country. This country is about competition, period. You come here with an idea, show us how to work. Look at their sports. And guess who's now competing in sports against Americans? Africans. Look at your basketball teams. You will see very weird names. Why? Because from where you came from, there's 1.4 billion, and they're here to compete. Look at football. Africans. So these are people who are not here to complain. They want to learn, how do I play basketball at the Jordan level? How can I do that? So those are my examples. If I say that Africans compete, I'm like, what am I doing? What am I? Oh, America is really tough. Of course, for everybody it's tough. Ask Italian Americans in New York. They had a rough time. The Irish Americans in Boston, they had a sign that says, dogs and the Irish not allowed. So human beings have an oppressive nature, but they also have this resilience nature. You all have an ability to survive. Don't ever give in to this notion that you're not capable. No, you're very capable. And for me as a Ugandan, after going through a war, and I'm going to play around, this is a gift. Can you imagine being given a US citizenship and you come here and you play around with it? You have a gift. You are now an American. Boom, go, let's go. So I don't want Americans to feel like I'm here and I'm just here to complain. Why? Because I got a scholarship to go to college from a man, this white dude from Oklahoma, paid for my school, $52,000 every year, to go to one of the most elite schools in Boston. Now imagine if I played around with that. But guess what he did? He saw me, he had never met me before. He just said, Derek, I'm going to choose Derek, I'm going to give the money to Derek. The day we met was when I was getting the CNN Heroes Award, with 1.2 billion people watching that program. Can you imagine what that did to him, for him as well? I mean, I'm happy, I'm blessed, but can you imagine seeing that gift work its way all the way into 92 countries? That's what America is asking us to do, not to worry about what other people think about us and who we are and who we're not. No. Do you understand America? And if you do, then you go out there and you compete. By hook or crook. That's the gift you have. Because otherwise Somalia is tougher.
Time for one more question. Okay.
Derek, thank you so much. I mean, you're an inspiration. Your story is an inspiration. And it's clear that you have this capacity to see problems, right? You named it, right? You can see a problem and you can find solutions to that problem. I'm curious about what your creative process is and how you approach problems, just your process, and also just kind of maybe curious about your philosophy of what creativity is for you.
Oh, that's very good. So I'm walking around, I have the luxury to walk around and just observe and see where does society need help? What are the gaping holes? What are the things that we need to work on? And usually those are based on my philosophy, which is being in ecological balance with nature. I'm an environmentalist all the way, for a good reason. Because if Mother Earth is not healthy, I am not going to be healthy. So that's my philosophy. Based on that philosophy, I am therefore tunnel visioned into these areas of environmental solution. So plastic, for example, bothers me. Climate issues bother me a lot. But rather than complain, my philosophy then goes to what can I do about it? I can't solve all the environmental issues, but I can solve that one thing. And then I focus on where can I still make money doing it? Can I solve the problem? And what is the problem? So for this soap problem, the legacy was that I was not going to be recycling soap for all my life. My goal was to get the hotels to move away from bar soap to liquid soap. So my legacy is that all the hotels now globally have moved away from 4 bars or 3 bars of soap in the hotel to now canisters of liquid soap, which has eradicated that 800 million number. It's amazing. So that shifting of culture is part of what I'm involved in, and that's what guides me into the work. What am I going to do to have that shift happen, to change your behavior without me having to protest you? I don't have to yell about you being an American. I can just go solve the problem and boom, we're done. So my philosophy is don't complain, observe, sit down and spend time and think through everything. And I'll conclude with this one thing. It's not enough to just have a good idea, for example, but the practicality of it is where the problem is. You have to be clever. So for example, I took all my bars of soap from here to Uganda, for example, without spending a single dollar in transportation. How do you think I did that?
You gave them soap.
I'm sorry?
You gave them soap.
Speak loud.
You gave them soap.
No, how did I move the soap from Vegas, where the factories were, after production, all the way to Uganda without paying a single dime in transportation cost?
Hire the right people.
Hire the right people? No. In accounting, because this is a science that we all look at, everything that comes into Vegas is what? Shipped in, because it's landlocked. But those trucks, when they're leaving to go back out to LA, they're what? They're empty. But in accounting, that space still has value. So I went to the transportation companies and I told them, if I write you a letter saying you donated $3,000 for me to move my soap to Vegas and to Uganda, will you donate the space to me? And they said, absolutely, because they were losing. They didn't have that money. So they wrote off $1 million in transportation costs for me. So that's how you do it. The philosophy is be clever. It's not enough to have a good idea, but think through the systems. Are you doing efficacy work? Are you using your whole brain? What I call having a full thought in the process. So that's my philosophy, and that's my approach. Yes, okay, one more.
Derreck, can you give us a closing words of wisdom, your spirit in your native language?
Oh my goodness. In my mother tongue. I speak Luganda. I'm a Muganda. And I'm going to try and give you something and try and hopefully translate it correctly. Timwela biranga okutya n'okwebaza Mukama. Never forget to respect and be thankful to the gods. Can you arise? Okay, the song is in Swahili, so are you ready to dance a little bit? Repeat after me these words. Moyoni, moyoni. Moyoni, moyoni. Nimempata. Nimempata. Bwana moyoni. So those last words I gave you, never forget to respect. This song is about you understanding that you have peace in your mind. In my culture, in the morning when you go, the sun rises slowly, am I right? And that means that it invites us to enter the new day quietly and gently. It never opens, boom, slowly, gently and nice. And then at midday, you're active and good. When it sets and goes back down, does what? It says gently. I told my kids in the morning, don't wake up and blast your rap music at 6 in the morning. Guys, rise in harmony. Be kind. And then when you come back home, you come back. So you go with peace and come back with peace. So the song goes, Moyoni, moyoni, nimempata Bwana, moyoni. That's all you sing, okay? And I'm going to put in some onion, curry powder, and make it a little bit interesting. So when you sing moyoni, moyoni, Mempata Bwana. Okay, so sing that, okay? You stay like a train. Don't, so I'm going to say, don't go what? Because then you're going to lose space, okay? Stay on the line. I'm going to say all that stuff, okay? That's onion and all that thing. Now, rule number 2, if you cannot sing, don't sing too loudly, okay? You don't right here. But if you can sing, do what? Give us a voice, okay? Rule number 3, if your white man cannot dance, give me the white dance. Here's a white dance, okay? Let's do dance. Right there. If you're black and you cannot dance, leave. Because you cannot sing African song like an Episcopalian. Boring. We want you to give us that. Give me that diversity. Yeah, like that. Like that, okay? So let's try to sing. We're going to get this one. Moyoni, Mempata Bwana, Moyoni. Come to me. Moyoni, Mempata Bwana, moyoni wangu, moyoni wangu, Mempata Bwana, Dikoshe ali, moyoni, Mempata Bwana, moyoni. I love you.